Hello boys, girls, men, women, freedivers of the free world. Welcome to Freedive Passion. Today's topic is going to be the 9 factors which affect your equalization. The first factor which is going to affect your equalization is your epiglottis, soft palate and your tongue control. These are the 3 muscles that you use to equalize. And just like any muscle, they need to be trained and you need to gain control over these muscles. It's like when you go to the gym for the first time and you try and do bench press. At first, you'll be moving the bar all around, trying to get it down and get it up. But the more often you repeat the exercise, the more efficient the exercise will become and the heavier you'll be able to lift. And it's not necessarily because you're getting stronger, it's because your technique is getting better. It's the same with equalization. If the only time you practice equalization is when you dive, but you only get to dive, 1 or 2 weeks a year, you're never gonna learn, you're never gonna get better. What you need to do is to spend the other 50 weeks of the year doing dry equalization training, doing soft palate awareness, epiglottis awareness, tongue awareness exercises, and build up a voluntary control of these muscles. That way, when you do finally go on holiday, you'll know exactly what's going on, you'll know what mistakes you're making, and you'll know what you're doing right. If you try and progress in freediving and learn to equalize without gaining this control, it's going to be very hard, very frustrating, and very slow for you. But if you do have that control, the progression is very quickly, because at the end of the day, equalization, it's really simple. It's so easy so long as you have the control over the correct muscles. The second thing which affects your equalization is how much air you take on the surface. It's quite simple physics. The deeper you go, the smaller your lungs will compress. At a certain point, your lungs will become smaller than what your chest can compress to. This is what's known as your failure depth. And at this point, you'll no longer be able to bring air up to equalize your ears. The more air you take on the surface, the deeper this point will become. This is the reason why some people pack. The third thing which will affect your equalization is how much you can compress. So like I already mentioned, as you're going deeper, the weight of the water around you is going to compress your chest and your lungs. The point where equalization becomes difficult is when your lungs become smaller than your chest. So obviously the more your chest can compress, the deeper that point will be and the deeper you'll be able to equalize to. So there's lots of factors which will affect how flexible your chest is or how compressible your chest is, such as diaphragm flexibility, flexibility of all the muscles, tendons and ligaments around your chest. So like a good stretching practice, yoga practice, is going to help you to become more compressible. The fourth thing which will affect your equalization is how much you allow yourself to compress. So what I mean by this, and I've done a couple of blogs about it, which I'll post links to down below, is, like I said, the point you reach your failure depth is the point where your lungs become smaller than your chest can become. So if you want to become as small as possible, the ideal position would be something like this. The shoulders slightly rounded forward, chin tucked. This is as small as you can let your body become without totally destroying your streamlining and curling up into a ball. But what a lot of beginners do, and quite a big mistake, is they'll have some tension in their back, so now you've actually expanded your chest. So if you hold this position, your chest won't be able to go as small as what it could go in this position. This now means your lungs will become smaller than your chest sooner. So you need to keep that in mind if you're struggling with equalization. If you're struggling with equalization towards the end of the dive, the worst thing that you can do is look at the bottom of the line to see how far you have to go. This is expanding your chest and making the difference between your chest and your lungs greater, and therefore making it even harder to bring air up to equalize. The fifth thing which will affect your equalization is how strong your dive reflex is, and specifically your blood shift. So again, as you imagine, you're being compressed as you dive. If this is your chest, this is your lungs, they're both being compressed at the same time. At a certain point, like I already mentioned, your chest won't be able to be compressed anymore. It's going to reach its limit. If you keep going to depth, if you keep going deeper, the air in your lungs will continue to be compressed. But what happens is the body has a response where it starts to bring blood from the extremities into the blood vessels in the lungs. So although the air in the lungs is getting smaller, your lungs themselves will stay about the same size. So what this will mean is, as your lungs are being compressed and your chest is being compressed, your chest will reach its limit. Even though the air in the lungs is getting smaller, the lungs are still the same size, and you can still create enough pressure using your respiratory muscles to bring air up and equalize. This dive reflex, it varies in strength from person to person. Also, the more often you dive, the more you train, the stronger the dive reflex will become. So this is why when you start to train after not training for a period of time, you start with shallower depths and then you build up slowly to give your dive response time to become strong and to adapt to the depth. The dive response isn't perfect. It's not going to allow you to equalize to any depth, but the stronger it is, the deeper you'll be able to equalize to. This is the reason why Umberto, all hail Umberto, can go over 100 meters just using Frenzel. The sixth thing which will affect your equalization is how deep you take your mouthfill. The deeper you take it, or the deeper you can top it up until, the longer it's going to last. It's quite simple. I understand a lot of people like to take the mouthfill early, so do I, because you can get a really full mouthfill and it's quite easy. But what I recommend doing is to keep topping it up, and how long you top it up for is going to depend on each individual, until you're as deep as possible. This means that mouthfill is going to last as long as what it could last in relation to the strength of your dive reflex and how flexible you are and all the things I've already spoke about. The seventh thing which will affect your equalization, this is quite subtle and it doesn't necessarily apply to everybody, is how often you equalize, especially on your last Frenzel or when you've taken your last mouthfill. So if you imagine when you take a mouthfill or when you take your Frenzel, you've closed your epiglottis and you've trapped air above it. To equalize, you're creating pressure in this area, and that pressure is going to be pushing against your epiglottis. Not everybody is made perfectly, everybody is made differently, so we don't all have a full seal on the epiglottis. So each time you put pressure behind that glottis, there's a chance some air is going to leak out and you're going to be wasting your last Frenzel or some of your mouthfill. This doesn't apply for everybody, it doesn't seem to affect me at all, but it's something to bear in mind for you, because maybe it does affect you. I'm not saying that it's good to stretch your eardrums or to wait until the last moment till you equalize. You should equalize before you feel any pressure, but be aware as you go deeper, you don't need to equalize as often because the pressure change is much smaller. So you can adjust your rate of equalization as you go deeper. The eighth thing which will affect your equalization is your technique. Let me assure you, to equalize properly requires 100% of your concentration. You need focus because the muscles involved in equalization are very small and very subtle. So you need to give all your awareness just to that. But if your technique isn't right, then it still requires thought and it can still distract you from your equalization. So for instance, if you have bad finning technique, if you have a bad free fall, you're moving in and out of the line, you're moving around the line, then they're all things which are going to distract you from your equalization. So if you are struggling with your free fall, with your finning technique, and with your equalization, work on first your finning technique. Work on it until you don't need to think about it anymore, until you can go straight up and down the line without having to use your conscious mind to do it. Then work on your free fall until it's the same, you go straight down the line without having to use your conscious mind to do it. Then you can start thinking about your equalization, and you can give the equalization the type of focus and attention it needs in order for you to progress. The ninth thing which will affect your equalization is relaxation. So again, this goes back to giving equalization the amount of focus and concentration that it needs in order for you to do it properly. If you're not comfortable with the dive that you're doing and you can't relax properly and just focus on the equalization, then you'll be distracted. And when you're distracted, it's very easy to mess up your equalization. So some reasons why you'll become distracted, I'd say the main reason is if you're not comfortable with the dive that you're doing. If you're trying for a PB and you still haven't worked out your equalization and relaxation, then you're trying to do something you've never done before, you're not 100% sure that you can do. And at the same time, you're trying to develop your relaxation and you're trying to learn new skills. A PB is not the time to learn new skills. A PB is the time to test the skills which you've already learned. The same with even if it's not your PB, if it's a dive that you're not 100% confident with. If there's any negative thoughts, if there's any lack of concentration during a dive, it's going to affect so many other aspects of your diving. Each dive, it should be completely relaxed, completely calm. It should be an enjoyable experience. When you're relaxed, you can focus your mind where it needs to be. And where it needs to be on the free fall is your equalization and ensuring that you have complete relaxation within your chest area and your diaphragm. That's all for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you liked it, then please like, share and subscribe. If you have any questions or comments, then yeah, just comment down below. I'm gonna try and release videos like this, quite regularly. So if you have any ideas for videos, then just comment down below as well. Have a good day, guys, and I'll see you soon.